everyone, welcome back to the 3-hour news show on C today, and we are now entering our favorite segment, See the Ramadan Stories. This is the signature segment of our show. Now, before we talk with our guest today, I want to ask you first, does talking with friends help you to handle grief?
I believe so. It doesn't have to be friends, right? You just have to be able to talk to someone.
Are you
and
an
share.
extroverted person?
I don't think so.
No?
No.
Because to me, as an introverted person, it's kind of hard, sharing with someone, especially maybe friends is okay, but to strangers, I don't think I can do that. But let's find out more about it. So grief should be addressed by talking to someone, apparently. Don't let it linger, as studies suggest it can increase the risk of heart problems. Oh no.
According to researchers at the University of Arizona, severe grief can cause a significant increase in blood pressure, which suggests that grief could be a risk factor for cardiac events.
Grief can also raise levels of the stress hormone cortisol, disrupt cholesterol-filled plaques that line arteries, and increase the risk of heart attack. Therefore, it is vital to manage grief and seek support if you are experiencing severe grief to reduce the risk of heart problems. And now joining us in the studio is Grief Talk founder Narisha Darusman, or better known as Nira, who will explain more on how to support someone who is experiencing grief. Good evening, Nira.
Hi,
Hello,
Cynthia.
welcome.
Hi, Rangel.
Hello, welcome to our studio. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, okay. First of all, before we dive deep into our discussion, could you please explain to us what is Grief Talk?
Okay, so Grief Talk has evolved because it was first started back in December 2020. It was just a support group, grief support group, but now as we evolve, we have also now Instagram, where we can share information about the grief, where we try to educate people about grief. But first it was a grief support group where we know that we cannot, hold our grief. We need to share, and that's why Grief Talk is there.
What inspired you to establish this? Because earlier you said that it was established December 2020.
Yeah.
It's when the pandemic
It was during the
worst,
pandemic,
right?
Yes, it was during the pandemic. You're right. Actually, it was just like a trigger for me to actually do it, because I also experienced grief. I lost 4 members of my immediate family from 2007 until 2014. And it's not easy. At the time, we didn't talk about grief as much as now. We didn't talk about mental health like now. So it was really a struggle for me. And then after going to a psychologist, I know that I have to talk about it.
Yeah.
And then the initial idea came in 2018, but I don't know, I think I wasn't ready to, because I know after I went to a psychologist, I know that actually when you lost somebody, you will eventually grieve forever, and you only need support during those times.
Right.
So I thought maybe I should go to a support group, but I couldn't find any, so I thought maybe I should make my own. But as I said before, I didn't have the courage. So the pandemic actually gave me strength to finally do it, because at the time, December, we didn't have vaccine.
Yes.
Right? It was like the darkest moment in our lives, and I thought people are now really needed.
Yeah, I think it's really smart to establish a support group, because even when you lost someone and then you speak to your best friends, you can't guarantee that he or she can relate to you, right?
Yeah.
But if you establish the support group, you have
Somebody who really understands
exactly.
and really go through not the same thing, but
yes,
at
similar.
least similar, and at least they know how you feel, and for the most part, they won't judge you. And that's very important.
Right.
Yeah.
So Nira, for those of us who don't really familiar or understand maybe, can you tell us more on what the purposes are
Yeah.
of a support group.
Yeah. So first of all, we want to create a safe space.
Okay.
Like, as we mentioned and as we agree that we need to talk about it, but we need to have a place, a safe place to talk about it. So number one, I want to create a safe place, and then hoping that safe space would make the people who lost their loved ones feel comfortable enough to talk, because eventually when they talk, they can finally start the journey of healing, and that's very important. And that's the only thing that I
Yeah.
think is important, because when we realize that we need to process that, and then the journey of healing is starting.
But how do you establish this safe space? Because being in a group of people, with so many people in a community, different way of thinking, different values, different life experiences, how do you manage to maintain that place as a safe place for people to share their grief?
That's a very good question, and maybe I'm not an expert. To just give you a disclaimer, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm just a person who has experienced grief, and that itself give me like the knowledge on how to be able to communicate with them, and to be like a lead group or a facilitator, because we need to have empathy. But to answer your question, we have like terms and condition. Like number one, confidentiality is always important. So whenever we start the meetings, we always say that nothing leaves this room, everything stays. And then we need to respect each other. Like every story matters. Everyone has their own timeline. There's never be a thing like this is right and this is wrong. And we should respect everyone. So I keep on saying that every time, and it seems to work
Right.
up until now. Yeah.
Yeah, because basing it on the experience, of course.
Yes, yes.
I am a firm believer also. Experience is a teacher of a lot of things.
Yeah.
Now, if you may, and if you can, share with us maybe just a little bit to an extent of the discussions or the activities that you guys do when you are meeting in the support group when they're meeting. Can you maybe tell us a little bit what's happening?
So there's we will be having like a 20 to 40 group
Wow, okay.
of people. It would be online or offline. Now we have both kind of meetings, and then the facilitator in this case, it would be me. I would open the session, and then everybody can turn to share stories, and then I will maybe like give them appreciation, because I know it's hard to share stories. Like you said, you can share to your best friend, but to strangers, not really.
Yeah.
And to like open up yourself and be vulnerable in front of people who you don't know, it's not easy. It takes some courage, actually. So I will appreciate them, and then we just give a source of strength, maybe, because at the end, our community, we don't give like solution per se, but we just create that safe space, and it's just like an option for us to have support if we don't have support like in family or stuff. So it's going to be like that twice a month that we have
Twice a
meetings.
Twice a
Yeah.
month, okay.
I hope I answer your question.
No, actually, I have an idea now.
Okay.
I have a follow-up question later on.
Okay. Sure.
What are the expectations of the participants usually? Usually they expect an outcome, right? By joining your sessions per se. What are their expectations? Do they expect to like end the grief after the session, or tell me more about it?
To be completely honest, I never ask their expectations, but again, I operate the way I experience things. So, of course, I did some research, and I ask questions to people who may know, and I ask to experts. But in order for me to operate, I really hang on to my intuitive. And talking about expectations, again, I always try to listen, number one, and then, being empathetic in their stories, because eventually, like I experience grief, I only want to be heard. I just want to be heard. I just want my feelings to be heard, to be acknowledged and
validated.
and people telling me it's okay to cry.
Yes.
It's okay to grieve. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to do whatever, and that's what I need, and I think that's what they need as well.
That leads me to the next question, because you keep mentioning that it is okay to feel not okay. It's okay to cry, right? But here in our culture, usually when someone passes away, the relatives would say like,
Don't cry.
don't cry,
be
be
sad.
strong, things like that. So I would like to know the appropriate things to say to a person who just lost a loved one.
Funny you ask that questions, because culturally, it's like that.
Right.
So even for me, who experiences losses after losses, and even for us to be able to have these meetings and to meet people who grieves maybe on a weekly basis, we still think how to properly say things, because culturally it's like,
Exactly.
right?
Wired that way.
Yeah, it's wired that way. So at the end of the day, I think my answer is like, just offer your help. Like, what can you do? Or just be there for him or for her, because we never know what to expect. And maybe please don't try to say things like that, because we when we say be strong, like, okay, do we have a choice not to be strong?
Right. Right.
So we don't need that.
Yes,
Yep.
you're right.
Yeah. So yeah, maybe just be there for the person, and maybe give like a physical help, like send them food or send them money, or do something that is more concrete rather than,
Yeah.
Hopefully I answered the question.
yes.
That's really clear now, too. That's a good point that you brought up, Chrisia. Now, again, support group, I've never been to one. I don't think I've ever seen one here in Jakarta, but again, I know you can probably say this too. We see a lot in movies.
Right.
You go.
It's my inspiration, Ranga.
All right, there you go. We nailed it. So thinking if I were to go there again, like if Chrisia thought I was maybe an extrovert, but I don't know what I am. What I'm trying to say is, when you're actually there and then you are in such a state where you're grieving, and sometimes you're just not sure of sharing. Now, how do you encourage some of the individuals that come to the session, and telling them that yes, we can. This is a safe place, like you've been telling us, a safe place for you to share everything. We are in the same boat. We have the experiences. Maybe we can just trade off, and hopefully, when you leave this place, when you leave the session, you'll feel just a tad better.
Yeah.
Is there ways for you to do that?
Well,
Encourage some,
actually, number one, they don't have to share. I always say that.
Okay.
So they feel like it's okay just to be there and
To be there,
listen.
right, okay.
And then, of course, I would tell my story first, like as an opener, and then I would be vulnerable too. And then maybe, they will see that it's okay
Right,
to
okay,
share
okay.
stories. But I never force them to share
right.
or do anything, because at the end of the day, when they are there, it's a step already. It's like a
Right.
big
Exactly.
step. It's a huge step for them to okay, I want to go to this meeting
Right, right.
and meet with strangers,
Yeah.
so.
And I think just by listening to other people's stories
Yep.
kind of give you strength, right? And
Right,
being in the same room with the energy, like willing to grieve together and
Yep.
like face the reality without running away from it, it kind of feels empowering to me.
Yes.
Yes,
I
it
agree.
is.
Well,
We still have so many questions,
We
but
have. This has been a very nice discussion with Nira. But guys, don't go anywhere because we're going to continue our talk with Narisha Darusman after the break. Stay tuned.